Today, I'm going to show you how to make two kinds of chicken, one sweet, one spicy. You can prepare them together and even serve them at the same meal. They're gluten-free, dairy-free, kosher, and both are delicious. They've been a hit in our family for years. So let's start with what you need in order to make these two dishes. First of all, you need chicken. So I typically go to my butcher and I ask for a whole chicken cut into tenths. Tenths means they're going to actually split the breast. So obviously it's still the same amount of chicken overall, but it does give you more pieces to work with. And I found that's better, particularly when I'm working with a larger crowd. In my case, when I'm working with several dozen guests that are coming, I'll typically get 4 or 5 chickens. But if you're just doing this for, say, your family, you can work with just one chicken. Today, you're actually going to see me make one whole chicken of the sweet and one whole chicken of the spicy. First off, put a little margarine or olive oil, in this case olive oil, in the pan, and you just want to lightly grease it. You could also use a non-stick cooking spray. After you've oiled the pan, you're going to lay the chicken down flat on the bottom. And it's the same way whether you're doing the sweet or the spicy. So for instance, here's an example of what one full chicken looks like, all cut up and laying at the bottom of the pan. So what I do is I like to just make sure it coats one layer on the bottom, but I don't stack it. So make sure that whatever pan you're using is big enough that you can have each one actually on the floor of the pan. Don't worry if it's a little squished in there. I've done these where I'm fitting at least 2 full chickens into one of those pans, but just make sure that it actually is touching the bottom. Here's a tip for you if you're gonna get your chicken from a butcher. They will actually take the skin off or leave the skin on depending on what you want. So be sure to communicate with your butcher and it will actually make the work a lot easier for you. So the sweet really only has one main ingredient outside of the chicken and the oil that you use to grease up the pan. So the main ingredient, duck sauce. That's gonna be your friend when you need a quick, delicious, sweet dish, and it's something that scales, which is awesome. One thing that I've noticed, for whatever reason, they make these jars like Fort Knox, so if you have any trouble actually opening it, I find jar openers are your new best friend. Anyway, so all we're gonna do now is we're gonna take the duck sauce and pour it over the chicken. This is what the uncooked chicken looks like, and we're just gonna pour duck sauce. Pour 1 large jar or 2 small jars over the chicken and then spread the sauce evenly over the chicken. There are a lot of variations of this, and usually they'll say something like, a cup or frankly a smaller amount than I use. I typically just take an entire jar and dump it in. Typically that for me is 2 chickens. In this case, I actually took 2 smaller jars and still combined them. What I find is it's gonna liquefy and completely cover the chicken, and that's what I want. I want it just completely covering the chicken so it stays nice and juicy. So here's how the spicy chicken actually came into being. I was making the sweet chicken with the duck sauce, and I noticed that they also sold duck sauce in a spicy version. Personally, I don't like spice at all. I'm the person that goes to the restaurant and says, is there any spice in it? And they say, oh, just a little bit. And I say, wrong dish for me. I need no spice. But my guests, my family, friends love spice. So I wanted a spicy option for them. And so what ended up happening is I bought the spicy. I thought, oh, I'll just use the same recipe, pour it over the chicken, it'll be fine. The feedback I got was it's fine, but not spicy enough. So what I decided to do is, at that point it was Passover, and I looked around and I said, well, what do I have that's gonna work in this recipe? And what I came up with was horseradish, which is a staple at Passover. And so I used the white horseradish. Additionally, I had pepper. So you can use just regular black pepper or one of these little pepper mills that you're gonna grind. But that's really what I worked with. To make these spicy chicken, you're gonna use 4 main ingredients: the chicken, pepper, white horseradish, and duck sauce, which will be marked hot and spicy. So if you get one that looks like it has little red pepper flakes in it and is marked hot and spicy, that's the right one. What you may notice in this demonstration is that I'm using plain duck sauce, so you're not gonna see the little red pepper flakes. You actually can make it this way as well, but you may find it's not spicy enough if what you're looking for is really spicy. So get the one marked hot and spicy, and then follow all of the other instructions I'm about to show you. and you'll come up with a fabulous hot and spicy chicken. First up, just pour pepper all over the chicken. So at this point, I've put the duck sauce into a bowl. Oftentimes, I'll actually put the ingredients right into the duck sauce jar just to have one less bowl to work with. But for the purposes of this, I'm going to show you. So you can see I've already added a little bit of horseradish. Really, this is not so scientific. What I typically do is just put a bunch of horseradish in, and then I put in a bunch of pepper. So sometimes a little of that pepper, sometimes a little grinder, really whatever you like. And this is really going to be to taste. So at that point then, I'm going to mix it up. Get a better spoon here. But really, this is it. I just keep mixing it, and what's going to happen is you're going to start to smell it. Now, if you're someone who likes spice, wonderful. Feel free to taste it. But in my case, since I don't, I literally go by, if it feels like it's curling my nose, it's good. Just like with the other one, just pour your mixture right over the chicken. The next step is to wrap your chicken dishes in foil. Sometimes you can choose to leave them uncovered. A lot of recipes are going to call for that, and I know sometimes it'll make it a little bit more blackened. Personally, I like to cover. I just feel like it cooks it a little bit more evenly, and I don't end up with burnt chicken. I cooked this at 375. The chicken has now cooked for about an hour. It's clearly not done yet, but this is a great time to start turning it over. So this is when I typically come and flip over all the pieces. One thing I will suggest is that if you're going to use the same utensil for both, do the sweet first and then the spicy so you don't accidentally get spice into your sweet. A friendly reminder that no matter how fresh the chicken and how reputable the place you buy it, there's always a possibility that something has been contaminated within it. So you want to make sure that if you have touched the chicken with your hands or the chicken has touched anything else, that it's thoroughly washed. The chicken, obviously, you're not putting any kind of cleanser on, but your hands, make sure you're washing thoroughly, any cutting board, any area that you're touching, because what you don't want to do is then suddenly put raw vegetables or anything else on that, which could potentially make you sick. After the first hour, I put this in for another 20 minutes at 375, also with foil. I've now taken it out of the oven and flipped them over, and you can see it looks delicious. It looks done. The way that I test it in the end is I cut open a piece and just make sure that it looks white. Here's what the finished chicken looks like after you cut it. Notice that it is now white and not the pink that it was before. It can obviously look a little bit tricky. You may notice that it's sometimes tinged a little bit pink from the sauce, but as long as on the inside you can tell it's really cooked through white, you're good. Now you know how to make two kinds of chicken. One sweet, one spicy, both delicious, can be prepared together and served at the same meal. Something to satisfy everyone. By the way, if you've enjoyed this, I hope you will like my video and you will subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. Whichever chicken you prefer, I hope you enjoy it in good health.